Hi, I'm Brittany Murphy, and we're right now at the Blockbuster Video Store, which is pretty busy this time of day, at 51st and 8th Avenue. New York City, center of the universe, greatest city on earth. And I'm here to pick out some good videos, my favorite videos. I'm overworked, I'm overtired, and I can relax and watch the things that I love. So come on, we'll have fun.
Hey, my name's Kevin, Miami. You can just call me Kev. I'm a full-time student. I am in my early 20s. I have a car. I rent a house. And I have 3 dogs. But my life is ruined. It's in shambles. And I don't know what to do. About a week ago, I had just gotten back home from vacation. Sunburnt, your boy was crispy. In fact, I'm still burnt right now, but that's besides the point. I was sitting on my couch. I wanted to watch something, okay? I didn't know what I wanted to watch, but I wanted to watch something. That's when I saw a movie that my brain completely forgot about. I saw it, I was like, hey, I like that movie. I remember I liked that movie. We got some memories flowing. The brain juices are working and all that stuff. The movie was Uptown Girls. 2003's Uptown Girls, starring Brittany Murphy and Dakota Fanning. And the guy from Scrubs, the dude who did the Fortnite dance. Now this is where the story starts storying. It's about halfway through the movie, right? I do this quite often. I'll just be like, hey, I wonder what these actors are up to. I wonder if they've done anything else and whatever. And I finally found out that Brittany Murphy had, unfortunately passed away. It's really surreal. Just to find out 16 years later that one of your favorite actors of all time, one of your favorite actors from your childhood, had died and had been long gone, right? It's a very strange feeling. But yeah, she passed away in 2009. And when I tell you that hit me, girl, that hit me, like, but rest in peace to you, Brittany Murphy. And I am 1000% sure that she would have gone on to create so much more. Maybe I'll make an entire video on her one day, but that's besides the point. Now, I didn't mean to go on like a huge tangent like that, right? But like, your boy's just trying to set the stage. I'm trying to set the stage and, explain to you guys how I found myself deep in this nostalgia rabbit hole. But yeah, no, like, ever since that night, I've only been listening to early 2000s music. Cause it's the best. Be real with me. And I've only been watching early 2000s movies and early 2000s TV shows. Cause what y'all know about Rush Hour. And thus, I've only been brewing in my own despair. I've been laying down and I've just been having an overactive imagination. I've been thinking, what would my life have been like if I wasn't just a little critter back then in the early 2000s? What if I was my current age in the early 2000s? What would my life look like? And those ideas, those thoughts, they stem from how powerful nostalgia really is. At the end of the day, I said that, you know, I'm depressed. But where does that stem from? That stems from nostalgic depression. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Like I said in the beginning of the video, like I said in the introduction of the intro, I am in my early 20s. In the early 2000s, I was a toddler. I was a thing. I didn't even have sentience. That's how young I was back in the early 2000s. How do I feel nostalgia for it? Why do I feel such nostalgia? Why is the nostalgia so painful for the early 2000s for me? If you want like an actual legit answer and you're not here for just like the jokes and like the vibes and all that other stuff, I have an actual answer for you. You are able to feel nostalgia for a time period that you weren't even born into yet. You know, the brain's powerful. It's caused by substantial exposure to culture from that time period. The culture, the media, the music, everything from that specific time frame. In my case, that's what it is. That's what it stems from. Uptown Girls got me messed up, y'all. But hey, we're not here to talk about my specific experiences for the most part, because like, you know, I have been talking about my specific experiences, but I'm here to talk about why, just why the early 2000s were the best period of human history. In human history. What made them so great? That's what we're here to talk about. So I sat down for a hot minute and I thought, and it kind of hurt because, you know, you boy don't be thinking that much, but I thought that the best way to structure this video moving forward is to focus on the 5 broad factors of the early 2000s that contributed the most to making it the most nostalgic era of all time. And these 5 broad factors are movies and TV shows, the evolution of music, advancements in technology, fashion trends, and influential world events, okay? But when I talk to you about early 2000s, what year frame do you think about? Because whenever I'm talking about the early 2000s, you know, your boy only talking about the year 2000 to the year 2005. Maybe I'll let a couple things from 2006 that are good, I'll let them slide, right? They can go into the early 2000s, but 2007, that's the cutoff date, okay? That's the cutoff date. Nothing good, nothing that added to society came out in 2007. If I'm being honest, if I'm being 100% real with you guys, feel free to prove me wrong, because nothing of value to human society came out in the 2007.
Move it! Sugar Day! Who said Sugar Day? I'm beating your fucking ass. Who said that? Did you? No. I'm choking your face. You say that? No, I didn't say anything. You ready to be smart? Did I say anything? Did you say something? No, I did not say anything. I'm choking your head.
So, to start off, listen to this and think about how it makes you feel. So, how did it make you feel? If you're as old as I am, your heart should have shattered into a million little pieces, or, you know, at the very least, your heart should have came up out your chest like this. And if you felt nothing after hearing that, I'm sorry, but you're an infant. See, music in the early 2000s was really powerful stuff, okay? It was real powerful. It had the powerful ability to make you drop what you're doing, get up, and, you know, dance. But it also had the equally as powerful ability to make you put your little head in your hands and not care about anything for 2.5 minutes and just sob. Like, I don't know what they were doing back then in the studios, but they were making magic. Like, hey, let me get some of what they were on, please. You know, there's catchy music. Like, there's catchy music today, right? But the music back then wasn't just catchy. It was catchy, and it was also meaningful. Yeah, no, this music was incredibly genuine. You know, sometimes a little too genuine, if you ask me. But hey, Google, when did Pony by Genuine come out? Like what year?
The release date of Pony was October 8th, 1996.
Oh, it quite literally felt like all of these songs had literal blood, sweat, and tears injected into them. And I can tell you that, like, that's literally just nostalgia talking. I bet every generation feels the same about the music they grew up on, but hey, if you know, you know. I mean, just listen to Hero by, is it Enrique Iglesias? Or is it Julio Iglesias? No, it's Enrique Iglesias. Who even is Julio Iglesias? Who also on the topic of music, don't get me wrong, like, I'm a clown, right? You can tell I'm a clown, but I ain't foolish. Not everything sounded like it was from the heart back then. There was manufactured music, and the biggest example of manufactured music back then was boy bands. You could tell that each song was manufactured from scrap parts at a factory in the middle of Ohio. You could smell it. You could like listen to the song, you could smell that it just didn't smell like it came out of a beating heart. But on that note, even the manufactured music back then felt somehow less manufactured than manufactured music today, and a lot of music today feels manufactured. You know, boy bands were around even in the 90s, so it wasn't anything new in the early 2000s. What you know about NSYNC? What you know about Backstreet Boys? What you know about B44? But yeah, boy bands weren't the only thing that were evolutionary back then. We had alternate music, we had rock, we had alternate rock, we had alternative rock. And who would have guessed that blending rock with metal and also with pop, and then also with powerful vocals and guitar riffs and memorable hooks would be so successful? Like, who would have guessed? Other music was around too. You know, we had hip hop. We had rap, and they both went through a whole makeover, honestly. I quite enjoyed the goofy, lighthearted rap style in the 90s, okay? But goofy rap was out, and gangsta rap was in. There were revolutionary names in the game now, okay? We had the emergence of 50 Cents, okay? We had Jay-Z, we had Eminem's, right? And we also had the hardest person in the game at the time. We had Outkast.
Don't do it. May Eros, Artemis, and Apollo guide you through your musical journey.
That's enough of that. I also have to mention the fact that, you know, R&B was on some otherworldly goodness back then. There are songs in that genre from the early 2000s that I still have to listen to alone because, you know, your boy will quite literally bust into tears. They don't do it like that anymore. We also can't talk about early 2000s music without bringing up the rise of electronic music, okay? We had Daft Punk. And let me tell you, those punks were daft. These guys, they were pivotal in bringing the genre of electronic music to the mainstream. It was around in the 90s, yeah, but it wasn't as big, so... But, you know, on top of that, the music at the time was just so good at communicating what time period it was from. Okay, like you if you listen to something from the early 2000s, you can tell that it's from the early 2000s. You can tell. The music back then had an iconic sound to it. All the hits were very, very diverse. No two songs sounded the same. Every song was iconic in its own way. And they were all perfect. Now we're on to the next part. We're going to be talking about early 2000s movies and TV shows. The early 2000s was absolutely crazy in terms of TV shows. Like, dude, we had The Wire, we had Lost, we had Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
What'd you say? Yeah, I said it, honey. Come on over here and say that. You step on my friend's lawn, I'm gonna bust your ass.
Your car is badass.
Yeah, I know.
There's one specific show that I believe deserves to be talked about more than the others in this video, and it's only because it's like one of my favorite shows of all time. Like, and that show is The Sopranos.
Tony Gabagool, Grandma. It's nothing but fat and nitrates.
Gabagool. Over here.
Look, okay, before you guys call me out, I understand that The Sopranos is, you know, it technically began in the 90s, but honestly, it didn't start getting good until the early 2000s, if we're being real. Come on now, we gotta accept that fact. That being said, we have to talk about how The Sopranos itself, as a show, was just so influential. It was a pioneer. It really brought about a whole change, a whole shift in TV show quality. Just think about it. Were there any good shows in the 90s? Were there any good shows in the 80s? Did they even have TV shows in the 70s? Dude, I don't know. We were able to see a clear shift in the quality of TV entertainment, right? The dominating, lighthearted, family-friendly sitcom was then shifted into shows that were more grounded and exploratory. I mean, before The Sopranos, we never had an anti-hero as a protagonist on TV.
They f***ing made me.
And due to that shift in quality, we were later able to observe shows being created such as Breaking Bad. Also, Friends was apparently like really huge back then. I for one don't know anything about Friends because, like, you know, I'm only half white, okay? I'm not the full deal.
You know what we should all do? Go see a musical.
But, you know, the thing is with these shows is that at the time, I was a little baby thing. I was just a little critter. I didn't know what a Wire was. I didn't know what a Simpson was, and I definitely didn't know what a Soprano was, okay? I didn't know what they were, but I'll tell you something I did know about. I did know about cartoons. And I just loved Cartoon Network. I do remember Courage the Cowardly Dog. I do remember Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I do remember Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. And dude, I even remember My Gym Partner's a Monkey. What even was that show? What even was My Gym Partner's a Monkey? What was Camp Lazlo? I don't know, but they both had monkeys as main characters. But that doesn't matter. All that matters to me is that my favorite cartoon of all time was active at that period of time where I could comprehend things. My favorite cartoon ever was and is...
Is that the support beam to the house?
What's a support babe?
Ed, Edd n Eddy. And when I tell you that I loved Ed and Eddy, I loved Ed and Eddy. This was the golden age of cartoons, and it was definitely the golden age of Cartoon Network. I don't know if anybody else remembers, but I remember back then they did these like bumper things where all the cartoon characters were living in their own like Cartoon Network city, and like, you know, in between shows it would just show them like interacting and stuff. And I was mind blown by that when I was a kid. I was like, yo, this is like a really cool concept, and I loved it so much, and I still love that idea today. That just made cartoons feel more alive, if that even makes any sense.
Hello? Professor, are you here? Hello? Oh gosh! Hello? Eddie? Where is everybody? Hello?
But, you know, we're done talking about TV shows. What about the silver screen? So, what you know about Lord of the Rings? What you know about Harry Potter? Huh? I know quite a bit about them, but that's besides the point. When it comes to these two movie franchises, it's weird, right? I don't know about you who's listening right now, but to me, my brain tells me that the first Lord of the Rings movie came out in the late 90s for whatever reason. That's what I think when I think of the first Lord of the Rings movie. When it comes to the first Harry Potter movie, my brain tells me that it came out in, like, you know, a later year, like at least 2005. Both of those movies were released in 2001, and that just blows my mind for whatever reason. It don't take a lot to blow my mind, but I didn't think that they both came out in 2001. But that just shows you the fact that both of those movies came out in 2001, two movies that were incredible and that started legendary franchises. Like, that's proof enough. I don't have to tell you anything else about movies in the early 2000s because that's proof enough that nothing but bangers were released. There wasn't a single flop. But yeah, that fact doesn't really prove anything or doesn't prove any points whatsoever. I just thought it was a fun fact. What is it that makes movies from this era so disgustingly nostalgic? Well, I got two words for you, man. Romantic comedy, dude. I like romantic comedies, and they were prolific in the early 2000s, but nah, I'm just joking. I mean, not about the part that I like romantic comedies. I love romantic comedies. Hey, everybody's got a different cup of tea or whatever, but I know not everybody likes romantic comedies. I got two words for you now, and this time I'm being serious. I got two words for you. Coming of age stories. Dude, we had The Princess Diaries, we had A Walk to Remember, and we also had The Perks of Being a Wildfire. Oh wait, that last one was from 2012. Interesting. That's weird. But yeah, no, these stories were really able to speak to younger people at the time, and they truly captured the vibes and the experiences of a section of the population that up until that point wasn't deeply explored in media. We also, at the time, we also had some of the best comedic dramedies or comedy dramas out there, or dramedies, I guess, but we had some of the best ones out there. There's The Devil Wears Prada, which is honestly my favorite Anne Hathaway performance, if I'm being honest with you. And then there's the previously mentioned Uptown Girls.
It's a charmed life.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. The thing about these comedy dramas is that they, actually had substance. They had meaning, and, you could analyze them, which meant that there was actual effort put into these movies. And I'll tell you, they were a far cry from the comedy dramas that emerged from the literal sewers of 2010s until today. Also, I promise I'm not gonna bring up Uptown Girls anymore in this video. I promise. I'll save that for another video. That movie means so much to me. While we're on the topic of movies, we can't forget about animated movies, right? You can't forget about them. They're there, and it feels like every single good quality animated movie came out in the early 2000s, specifically 2004 for whatever reason. I mean, we for real had Howl's Moving Castle, The Incredibles, Shrek 2, which is arguably better than the first Shrek. We also had The Polar Express and Shark Tale. I hate Shark Tale, y'all. Also, we had the SpongeBob SquarePants movie released in 2004. And me just saying that out loud, it makes me scream internally. Also, if you're confused on which SpongeBob SquarePants movie I'm referring to, you've already been blocked, dude. Get out of here. Get out of my house. Also, another reason why movies back then were so nostalgic and iconic and memorable is because they finally weren't garbage quality. There was a special look about these movies. The cameras back then, they were absolutely perfect. With a little bit of like, you know, the speckling on the screen every now and then. The movie cameras that they used back then did people justice, okay? It was able to provide perfect, you know, depth perception of each scene being shot. Kind of like a Polaroid. You know how Polaroids do people justice in comparison to taking a photo of yourself with your camera? That's a good comparison right there, because with Polaroids, you can see the depth perception, you can see shadows much better, and you can tell, like you can tell somebody has a chin, or you can tell that I'm here and my background's back there. When it comes to cameras on your phone, everything just sort of blurs in, and that's how I feel about movies nowadays. Also, I don't know if you knew, but like CGI is a thing, and it was really like coming into prominence in the early 2000s, and like it's cool, but it's lost its magic in today's society, right? Yeah, no, CGI was a thing, and it was relatively new, so people liked it, people were excited. I mean, looking back at the CGI that was used back then, it was awful, it looks terrible in my eyes, but people enjoyed it, and it was groundbreaking stuff, and it unfortunately took over a lot of modern day movie making. In general, early 2000s movies just had a certain feel to them. They just oozed with quality, and some of the most iconic franchises in cinematic history were produced during those years. But in general, it was a combination of groundbreaking storytelling, memorable characters, and technological advancements that were used to create cinematic masterpieces that still hold a place in our hearts today, at least in my heart.
Who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner?
Martin Luther King.
Francis Scott Key. What holiday was celebrated for the first time by the American colonists?
Martin Luther King.
You squeeze, you roll, you press. Now your bathroom looks a mess. And why is it impossible to get out the last drop of toothpaste? There's got to be a better way. Introducing Touch and Brush, the hands-free toothpaste dispenser that works with just a touch.
I'm not going to sit here and lie straight to your face and tell you that I understand how computers and processors work, because I don't. I mean, I put mine together and it functions, but still don't understand how it functions, and baby, I'm okay with that. I'm too pretty to be worrying about computers and stuff, okay? Also, I didn't put it together myself. I had help from one of my brewskis. Some of the most like groundbreaking technological advancements in the early 2000s were computer related. Like, we legit had faster processors come out, higher storage capacities, and better graphics cards. That might not sound important to you. Like, okay, of course computers got better over time, but let me connect this to something else that is even more groundbreaking, in my opinion. The first... Hold on, get a little closer to me. The first Apple iPod came out in 2001. What was so special about it is that it allowed people to get the exact music that they wanted in digital form straight from their computers. So there's the tie-in, you know, better computer quality, easier access to music. I mean, this was crazy because previously people had to go to the store and buy all their music on CDs. Or cassette tapes, which was like, you know, in the 80s and stuff, or records, which was like, you know, before the 80s and stuff. But that's, you know, that's besides the point. The music industry was reshaped, is what I'm trying to tell you right now. It was reshaped, and it's because of technological advancements. But like that's enough about music. I'm tired of talking about music. I want to talk about gaming. I want to talk about games in the early 2000s, okay? And you know, gaming in the early 2000s is a very nostalgic topic, especially for me. I don't know how old I was, but I do remember my parents got me a Leapfrog, is it Leapfrog? Leap-Pad? I think it's a Leapfrog. Leapfrog Leapster. That's what it's called. Leapfrog Leapster. And it was just like a little gaming pad. It was like a chunky DS before DSs were even a concept, okay? I don't remember much about it, right? But I do remember that there was one game specifically that I would play religiously. I would play this one SpongeBob game, and I remember vividly that there was one, like, there was a crab claw. There was like the Krusty Krab crab claw machine. That thing captured my soul for whatever reason. I remember playing that for hours. I remember enjoying it. I remember vividly the poor quality of the audio on that game.
Break time!
Are you hungry? Who's hungry?
Guess what I made for you, Patrick? Krabby Patties!
Oh, goody!
Another gaming related thing, is this a console? I remember having the Game Boy Advance. I never had the original Game Boy, okay, but I had the Game Boy Advance, and I love that little thing. I always thought it was so cute because it's a little square, and you fold the square and it turns into a square, and I thought that was a cute thing. I thought that was amazing. I had a little blue one whenever I was a kid. I don't know what happened to it. I think one of my family members might have stolen it or something, but I remember playing Pirates of the Caribbean. I vividly remember playing the disgustingly off-brand Pirates of the Caribbean game. It had nothing to do with Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, you played as Jack Sparrow, but the main character didn't even look like Johnny Depp. Man, who is that? Because, like, that ain't Johnny Depp. That's Jonathan Deep. I also remember one of my other favorite games was a Mario Kart knockoff. It was like Cartoon Network Racers, and it was so poor quality, but I remember playing it. I remember specifically playing it at a Home Depot. But, like, you know, those are besides the point. Like, hey, I loved my Leap Pad. I loved my Game Boy Advance. I miss them, but they're nothing compared to my GameCube. I love my GameCube so much. I grew up with an original GameCube. I remember when they came out. Oh my goodness. And I still have my original GameCube too. Here she is. This is one of my prized possessions, which is kind of sad, honestly, to say that out loud, but this is one of my prized possessions. I love this game. I love this original GameCube. She still works too, and she's a beauty. Look at that. Hold on. I will never stop loving my GameCube. Nothing but good vibes, nothing but, you know, good care for her. I never officially named her, but I think she's Sheila. I think she's a Sheila. No, I don't know. But yeah, as time moves forward, inevitably, I always find myself going back to my GameCube. And my GameCube is always there waiting for me, ready to cheer me up. Anytime I need anything, GameCube's there for me. So back to the actual topic at hand. Isn't it crazy that we have access to literally any information on the planet at any time in the palm of our hand? Imagine living in a world without cell phones or without smartphones. Even though I've lived most of my life with a reliable smartphone, I still think I'd have loved to live in the early 2000s. Back when phones weren't such a huge deal, it just seems like it'd be a more surreal existence, and I feel like I would have been more connected to the world around me. You feel me? Technology at that time period was strange. It could be seen as primitive in terms of what we currently use, because, you know, we had a lot of the things that we use today, but they were in their infant stages. Because, like, we didn't have Twitter, we certainly didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Instagram, right? I mean, best you had back then was MySpace and Friendster, whatever that is. I don't know what that is, but technology was just endearing. Speaking of technology, I picked this up at the thrift store the other day, and it still works. We have technology.
Levitating all that, you know. I don't know if I could. You know what? I was once able to do a levitation, but I got sick out of my. Let me try this. Stay right there. Don't move. Let me just try this. Stay right there. I don't know if I'll be able to get off, man. It's kind of hard to. Ready? Yo! I'm just levitating. You missed that? No.
Now we're on to the next topic, and the next topic is something I'm real passionate about. It's fashion. Okay, so fashion in the early 2000s is honestly best just described as listing off fashion trends from that time period. So like, I'm just gonna list them off. But we had a fascination with denim on denim. We had low-rise jeans, some baggy cargo pants, track jackets, and track suits in general. We had graphic tees. We had crop tops and platform shoes. Now, graphic tees, like, they weren't anything new, and they still aren't anything new. Like, people have been wearing graphic tees for years, but they really came into prominence in the early 2000s because people wanted you to know what they were all about. People just loved graphic tees with bold statements and graphic tees with band logos on them, because that's how people expressed themselves back then. It was very common for celebrities back then to make statements through simple t-shirts, and it seemed to work because this was a known way of boosting one's popularity. Celebrities were doing it, and that just made regular people want to do it even more. If you look at the early 2000s in general, this was a time period that was honestly the most diverse fashion scene in history. Literally anything was okay to wear except for suits. The baggier the outfit was, the better. These were rebellious times, and we had a lot of rebellious, angsty young people running around. So there was also an increased emphasis on accessorizing your outfits. People were going wild with chokers, hoop earrings, and those brightly colored jelly bracelets. Anything that was outrageous to previous generations was in, okay? I completely love that. And I love that vibe. I love the vibe of the early 2000s fashion. It really feels like in a way we've regressed in the aspect of fashion and freedom in fashion. Cause like, if you look back at the pictures from the early 2000s, people were going out in the most ridiculous outfits. People were going out there in the wackiest outfits. People were out there looking like JoJo villains. Like, they looked like the villain of the week. Men's hair back then, that's a whole different topic. I don't even know if I want to talk about men's hair back then because it was disgusting. The reason why people were going out dressed in such a way is because nobody cared. You know, it really does make sense the way fashion and fashion trends have changed, but I can appreciate the braveness that people had for their outfits back in the early 2000s. What happened to being iconic? I'm iconic. I don't know about you, but I'm iconic. See? You know, I'll tell you what happened. It's the rise of social media. People just know that if they go outside dressing all wild and stuff, they will get posted onto social media and they will be clowned on relentlessly. You know, people out here be ruthless and stuff. But you know, I can admire the desire to stand out.
Well, think of a number from 1 to 20.
Yeah, got it.
17? Here, I got a present for you.
Was it 17?
Right, it was 17.
Yeah, but I have a present.
All right, well, now we're on to influential world events. I know. Compared to the rest of human history, the early 2000s were such a peaceful, prosperous time to be alive. Everybody was living their lives to the fullest without even impeding on anybody else's human rights. Okay, so nothing I just said is true. If anything, everything I said was the opposite. You know, we gotta start off with the heavy hitter. Arguably the most influential world event that took place in the early 2000s were the September 11th attacks.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
I'm not going to talk about it that much because it's been talked about, everybody knows about it, and there's so many more other people who are more qualified to talk about the subject than I am personally. But I will talk about my personal experiences on that day, okay? I was either in kindergarten or a daycare at the time. I remember adults being scared. I remember picking up the sensation, the senses of fear. I could feel it in the air. And I think that's why I remember it so very slightly after all these years. All the kiddos, including myself, were all rounded up and put it into one big like auditorium type room, and everybody was in there just chilling. It wasn't traumatic to me or anything like that. I just remember the day that it took place. It was a very, very unfortunate thing that happened. Here are some other world events that happened in the early 2000s. You're not going to recognize these. If you are like my age or younger, you're not going to know these. I hate to say it, but these are things that happen, and like we totally forgot about them like really fast. So the first one is going to be the Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. It's just absolutely insane that nobody talks about this one. Over 230,000 lives were lost. This is literally one of the most devastating natural disasters in recorded history, and it's something that's like monumental, but yeah, nobody talks about it. It's crazy. But a lot of lives were lost in Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, lots of other places in that area, and it's truly a tragedy. Number 2 is the Iraq War. I mean, yeah, everybody knows about the Iraq War, but like at the same time, what was the Iraq War and why did it happen? I finally did some research, right? And I have a general understanding of what happened and why it happened. So in 2003, the United States and other allies invaded Iraq, which led to the overthrowing of Saddam Hussein and his regime. I knew that part, but it was like, why though? Here's the thing. The justification for this was the belief that Iraq was holding weapons of mass destruction. Okay. And it turns out that this belief was found to be unsubstantiated. So, yeah. The Iraq War would lead to long-lasting repercussions for Iraq and the rest of the world.
I have not heard any estimates of how many young American men and women might die in such a war, or how many tens of thousands of women and children in Iraq might also be killed. As a caring nation, we should do everything we can to prevent the horrible suffering that a war will cause. War must be the last recourse in international relations, not the first.
There were plenty of other terrible and, downright evil things that happened and took place in the early 2000s, right? But that's just what's been happening since the beginning of human history. Bad things always happen when humans are involved. But I had to mention a few of the things that happened back then that were pretty terrible, just to prove to you guys that no matter how much I glorify the early 2000s, they were also imperfect years. Also, while I'm on the topic, right, we have to admit that it was a terrible time for, people of color and people whose sexualities aren't the norm. Yeah, it was worse years ago. I am happy to say that the early 2000s were a time for social change. It may not look like it looking back, but things were happening. People were becoming more progressive. But you know how it is, right? Your boy likes to keep it chill vibes, cool vibes on the channel. All bad vibes inducing topics aside, you can call me clown, right? But literally the only era in time that I would ever consider living in New York would be in the early 2000s. Look, dude, our early 2000s New York was iconic, okay? It was iconic. And it was only iconic because it was featured in so many early 2000s movies and dramedies and comedies and yeah. And your boy's a fool, but I ain't stupid. I know it wouldn't be the perfect world that was shown in the movies, right? But I would have loved the experience. The early 2000s New York shopping culture was just something I would have loved to be a part of. It's the dream. It's a dream, but it'll never happen. It'll never be a dream come true because of my one true enemy in life, the one thing that I absolutely despise the most in this entire world. Time. Time. I've got an idea.
2 hours later.
I need you to give me the one thing my heart desires.
I know what you seek, human. You seek the power of time travel.
You already know what I'm in need of.
It is possible.
How can I achieve that?
Okay, write this down, because I'm not repeating it. You will need thread of the ages, technology of year 2000, nasty ass hair, and an infinity gauntlet.
That's it. That's the key to all my problems.
Many unbearable hours later.
I did it. I collected everything. I got the thread of the ages. Oh, smells like early 2000s. I've got the technology of the year 2000. Okay, yeah, that smells like dust. Okay. Wait. Where am I gonna get an infinity gauntlet? Well, I forgot I had this one, but now we have everything. So all I gotta do is like put it together somehow with the help of 20Q.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Are you ready? Hurry up. Dang.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Also, this journey may possibly break you both mentally and physically.
We'll do it. Oh, I think I messed something up. Damn, I forgot to meet Brittany Murphy. Next time. Where are my shoes? Where are my shoes at? Who are you? Well, Kev, I could ask you the same thing.